Text 2 and 3. So in the case for high school sports, in text 2, Kai Sato, he's responding to Amanda Ripley's essay from The Atlantic. That's text 1. And he's like, look, it gets a lot of likes on Facebook, that article did. But then he goes on and he says, well, there's a number of reasons why high school sports are important. And in fact, he mentions probably what would be considered his claim. And he says that, the goal of high school is to educate our young people so that they may become productive citizens, not just to score well on an international math test. And then he goes on to recognize that, hey, look, employers are looking for some of those characteristics that athletes have. And he quotes this guy right here, Ken Marshner, from a company called UBS. And this quote, you probably saw it, it's quite good. It'd be a good piece of evidence saying, hey, look, sports in school means that some of our citizens later on are successful workers. And in fact, Steve Raymond, he's the former CEO of Pepsi. He essentially says the same thing. You probably saw this quote here as well. He talks about discipline and teamwork and the drive for success and the desire to be held accountable, willingness to have their success measured or their performance measured. You probably also saw this study from 2002. It's by Oppenheimer. The mutual fund company essentially in their study discovered that 82% of women in upper level jobs, executive level jobs, white collar jobs, said that they played sports at some point in their life, whether they were in middle school or they were in college. And that moreover, that 50% of women making more than $75,000 a year, they said, look, I'm athletic. So down here at the bottom in text 2, Sato points out that in other countries you can't play sports and do school in the same place. That he calls them mutually exclusive right here. Mutually exclusive. And that's the case mostly around the world, where school is school, and then your club sports are your club sports. They're neighborhood-based or they're community-based, and you pay for them. You pay for them in addition to paying for school. And he says that, in China, for example, if you want to pursue a competitive gymnastic career, first of all, you have to be identified at a young age. They're going to pick you. And then it's likely that you'll be removed from your family, where you will be thrust into what he calls rigorous habitual training, where you train and train and train, and your schooling becomes secondary. He points out the same thing with one of the best soccer players in the world, who at a young age was kind of plucked from his place in the world and then just put into a soccer academy. And then Sato finishes strong at the bottom. He says, look, thanks to high school sports, American children can be both students and athletes. So he's looking at it from a perspective of it's an opportunity and it's a freedom that people in other parts of the world, lots of other parts of the world, they don't have that. In text 3, Bowen and Hitt take a look closely at a Chicago program. It's called Becoming a Man, Sports Edition. They point out that they take some kids who are maybe at risk, some at-risk kids, and they put them with like counselors and athletic coaches who serve as role models, and that they play sports and stuff. And in this research, evaluating Becoming a Man Sports Edition, that their evaluation of the program found that the program created lasting improvements in their study habits and their grade point averages. And there's no numbers here. I wish there were numbers, but there are not. And even that in the first year of the program, students were less likely to transfer schools or to be engaged in violent crime. And then even a year after the program, participants were less likely to have had an encounter with the juvenile justice system. So we're talking about the at-risk population in this article right here, and the benefits of sports for them. The article takes a little bit of a turn here and takes a look at this Minnesota school called St. Anthony Village High School. It's in Minnesota. And they collected some data based on GPA and grade point average and attendance based on sports participation. And that the district study found that students who not involved in sports, they had a GPA of like 2.72, while 3 sport athletes, this is out of 4 by the way, GPA is out of 4, had a 3.51. 2 sport athletes had a 3.31. These are considerably improved. And in fact, if you play a single sport, they're averaging at least a 3.0. So, and then in terms of attendance, in this article points out that if you played 3 sports, you missed, even though you're that busy, you missed 6 fewer days of school a year than those who did not participate in athletics. 6 fewer days a year. I'm just going to highlight that part of it just so the rest of it doesn't look like it's all jumbled together. Then last but not least, and this goes toward the idea of those who are at risk or maybe even disadvantaged. Looks like Bowen and Hitt go on to point out that there are countries like Finland and Germany and South Korea where you play sports outside of school. Those are club sports, and they found that in those countries, disadvantaged students, disadvantaged kids, they couldn't access those programs that were not tied to the school because they cost money, and they couldn't get a ride. Whereas, in the United States, you take a school bus to the games, catch a ride on the school bus to practice if need be. So this article is saying, therefore, if you reduced or eliminated these opportunities, these school sport opportunities, it would likely deprive disadvantaged students of being able to participate. And if they're not participating, then they're not making contact with positive role models outside of regular school hours. So that's the recap of the major points of text 2 and text 3.